Over the past couple months since January, we've been meeting regularly, going through this budget line by line. This wasn't just an opportunity to create the budget for the 14-15 school year, but also an opportunity to align every penny possible to the correct line item that it should be coming out of, so that a science teacher from the middle school is being paid out of the middle school, and not for some reason because of something that happened 10 years ago is still being paid out of a line item from Bradley School. So that each budget that you see reflects the actual teachers in the building. If they're split a 60-40 between high school and middle school, their salaries in this budget are split 60-40. So this gives you a true picture of the different cost centers within the district on a percent and dollar amount of what it's costs to run. That in itself took a lot of time to get there before we could start building anything for the next year. It's a letter to Mr. Butler, Chairman Butler, from Chairman Marcusio. And Mr. Marcusio apologizes. He had a family commitment tonight that he could not be here, but he has literally been, I can't even count the meetings he's been at over the past months in preparation for tonight, as well as at the meeting last night to pass the final passage by the Board of Education, but had a conflict tonight due to a family commitment. Our vision remains the same. Derby Public Schools rigorously prepare all students for high achievement and success in a competitive society. The mission of the Derby Public Schools is to join with our community to provide all students with high-quality education and the tools necessary to compete and succeed in a diverse global society. This gives you an overview of the different schools as well as the other cost centers within the district. This is where we were last year. This is the 14-15. The changes on a dollar amount as well as a percent. And I would caution you in looking at the percent and the dollar amount, because remember, as you go through line by line, cost center by cost center, you will see different changes. And you might say, why is there a 50% gain or loss in this particular area? It doesn't look like they changed that position at all. And what that was is reallocation of that line item of where those dollars really should be coming from. Again, going back to, as an example, an art teacher might have been assigned to the middle school and high school, might have had their entire salary being drawn out of the high school budget previously. Now we've balanced that. So you would see a plus 40% to the middle school and a negative 40% to the high school.
Are there a lot of allocations, or are there just a few?
There were quite a few fixes to give you a true picture of every single dollar where it's coming from. As well as realigning some of the services under system-wide services. So things like our substitute teachers are now under system-wide services. So we pulled the $25,000 from each of the schools, put it into system-wide services, because we now contract with Kelly Services to provide that.
Matt, the last one, St. Mary's, St. Michael's.
Yes.
Is that a decrease in enrollment that's causing that, or is it just services?
Just services, and we have a page that speaks directly to that, okay. So you can go through it line by line. It's just an overall of the different cost centers within the district on a percent. Just a graphic of what we were just looking at. Again, 69% of this represents our contractual salary and benefit increases overall for the budget. Gives you just a graphical of what we saw in terms of the difference between last year, this year, and next year. And again, within those different cost centers, within the entire district, our benefits, professional services, property services, supplies, materials, equipment, dues, fees, and again, certified salaries. If you total up the certified and non-certified, that's your highest percent, your 69% of the budget in terms of what that any increase represents. student enrollment for this current year as of October 1st. And as you know, we are in a transient district. This number goes up and down. Usually up as the more we get into the year, the higher that number goes. Just in the months of December and January, we enrolled over 50 new students. It's just population in terms of a percent by schools, broken out to readiness programs, special education, regular education, outplaced students. And again, our projected class sizes for 2014-15. Again, just a slight increase here from 1662 to 1661. And the next pages go through line by line each individual cost center, school, central office, technology and custodial services, system-wide services, special education services, line by line. And again, I can walk through this as, detailed, or give you an opportunity over the next weeks to review the different pages, provide you with my email, reach out to me at any time, and you will get a immediate responses back with an answer. If anything jumps out at you, please ask. One of the big changes to this budget also that is reflected in the overall is previously the transportation budget for athletics was primarily being paid out of the enterprise fund, which isn't why the enterprise fund was originally established. But it seems to be over the years where the majority of the dollars for transportation was coming from due to the inability to find the funding in the operation budget. The thing, if you're going to offer athletics, and you're going to offer athletics year to year, you have to be smart and build it into your operating budget so that you can fund it year to year. So, of the $50,000 that it will cost us next year to fund transportation for athletics, the entire $50,000 is in this operating budget. Supplies for equipment, balls, bats, will come out of the enterprise budget. The enterprise budget will also be reserved for those unforeseen transportation expenses, such as teams that don't normally make it to the playoffs, that we didn't budget for playoffs for, make it to the playoffs. That's a great thing for the community and for the kids. We will look to the enterprise fund for those additional costs. So those that we could project, because of what we've seen a history on, are built into this budget. Those unforeseen will come out of the enterprise.
Can you please explain to the other members the question I had asked about the paras? So that I know there's some members here that
About the
paras and the negotiations with them, because I know just before everything was done, you had not finalized.
Yeah, phenomenal. So that has now been finalized. What we did with the para-professional negotiation this time is we basically came to the table after weeks of talking about different language that had nothing to do with the financial part of the contract. We then went to the table and said, this is the dollar amount we can afford as a district over the next 3 years of the contract. How you distribute that in terms of whether it's a wage increase, whether it's a step based upon the scale in the paraprofessional contract, we left that up to the union members to decide for themselves. Because as far as we're concerned, the dollar amount doesn't change. So we don't get into the minutia of, well, they really want a step, or they want a wage increase and a step. It doesn't matter how you configure it. Here's the 3-year dollar amount that we will not go over. You work out with your members if it's a half step 1 year with a 0.5% wage increase, or a 2.5% wage increase this year with no step. But here's the total dollar amount for the paras and the nurses that we can afford as a district and as a community. And they actually loved that approach, because it took all the argument out, all the weeks of debate out, all the legal fees out. I think we spent probably about a total of $1,000 total in negotiations this year with our legal, in terms of reviewing what our proposals were to the union or proposals back to me, but not having to pay them to sit at a table through hours of negotiations. Does that explain it, Sammy?
Yeah, I just wanted them to hear it.
Yep.
Because I know it was a question on a couple people, even though they're not here.
Sure. I thought it was
This way here we have it on record for 'em.
a smart approach to the negotiations, and putting some of those harder questions back to the members to figure out, without changing the dollar amount.
Can we not, in Bradley schools, the teacher's substitute salary?
Excuse me?
Or in the Bradley schools, you have just explain how $25,625 is not?
Removed from it.
Yeah.
Yes. So as I explained, what we did is we took the $25,000 from each school and removed it and put it under system-wide services.
Okay, I noticed it, yeah.
So you'll see the increase under system-wide services for that didn't exist before, but it's not an overall increase. We simply moved the money from the schools to system-wide services.
Right.
No extra dollars in the budget in terms of that line item. Some other things we did, we had some staffing changes. So when the middle school was looking for additional services or different type services, you know, we look at our current resources and say, okay, how can we do it first? How can we do it within our current resources without spending any more money? How could you better spend your existing resources? So what we looked at for the middle school was they wanted a full-time library media specialist. He had a part-time library clerk, non-certified staff member, can't go in and teach a class. It may not have had the necessary skills to go in and to teach that class, to include assessment and ongoing instruction and so forth. So, and he needed to find a way to create additional electives within the school to provide greater services to the students, at the same time create opportunity for teachers to have common planning time, so that the planning time that teachers have built into their contract isn't so fragmented that they can never get together and talk during the school day and plan during the school day. So the 6th grade teachers don't have a planning time together where they can say, okay, we all have the same students, how are they doing in this class? How can we blend lessons in each of our classes so that there's continuity from class to class? Or all of our social studies teachers getting together 6th, 7th, and 8th and saying, okay, this is what I'm teaching in 6th grade, let's make sure you're not teaching the same thing in 7th grade. So we don't have a student in 7th grade saying today, oh, I saw that movie last year. So those type opportunities we need to be able to create through scheduling, and the only way you can do it is that those students are in an area supervised learning with teachers other than those in that cohort of 4 teachers, so that they can have planning time together. So to do that, we've looked at utilizing a full-time certified library media specialist increase from 0.5 to 0.6, 0.4 to 0.6 for our 2 language teachers to offer more opportunity for middle school students to take language, at the same time creating that opportunity for planning time for the other teachers. A 0.4 art position to backfill the art position that was split 60-40 that you heard me refer to before is now going to go over to the high school full-time, again to create more opportunity for the common planning time, and then still backfill it here at the middle school with a 0.4 position. And continue to offer art offerings and not lose that opportunity. And then at Bradley Elementary School, right now if you look at the numbers of our 4th graders, we have 129 system-wide. If we continue placing them as we do, we would have approximately 20 students per the 3 classes at Irving and 29 or more students at Bradley, where we only have 2 5th grade teachers. The only way to balance that so you had a maximum of 24 per class would be to have a cutoff at Bradley and tell those parents who come in after that cutoff, I'm sorry, but we're cutting it off at 24. You'll have to go over to Irving to attend school. So, and the only way to not create that situation is to, should we have the numbers come August, all of our 4th graders going into 5th grade, to include the transient population that will enroll between now and then, we have put into the budget funding for an additional 5th grade teacher at Bradley, so we have 3 and 3.
Do transient students disrupt the teaching and the...
Yes, they do. Yeah, because you're coming in, usually not at the beginning. Again, enrollment for a number of, as I said, December, January, we received over 50. In the month of December, we'll easily have 30 in the first 2 weeks. So you're coming into school sometimes halfway through a year.
And then are there too many students in a particular class then?
There could be too many students in a particular class. And then I have to go to the teacher and request through the teacher, if we go over the amount, are you willing to continue to have those students in your class, and we'll pay that teacher an additional dollar amount.
I mean, you can't turn them away.
You can't turn them away. And again, without getting into the research of class size, because it's all over the place, you know, granted it is, but just from a logical, because the research will drown us on both sides of the issue. Let's look logically at it and say, would you want your child in a class of 1 to 20 or 1 to 30? And again, it does come down to that engaging teacher, but you know, numbers do have an effect, especially where it's a transient population. And we have a 41% transient population. So. Now, to balance off some of these positions that we'd like to add, we had to eliminate some positions. So on the right side, we have elimination of a library clerk to partially support the library media specialist. We have the elimination of a reading facilitator to support the other part of the certified library media specialist. No additional cost to the budget, reallocation of funds. And an elimination of the security safety officer at DMS. It's a position that was mainly in the inside suspension room. Legally, we have to have a program that would provide services of inside suspension for students whose behavior indicates that that's where they need to be. We have to get away from as many outside suspensions by state law. But what we don't want to have happen is that become an opportunity for students to go sit in a room all day. They're being watched, but they're not being taught. They're not even receiving behavior intervention. So we're going to return them to the classroom. They're now 4 or 5 days behind. We haven't done anything to provide intervention for the behavior that got them there in the first place, but we expect them to act different. So what we are doing is utilizing our existing teaching staff in each of our content areas throughout the day. Each period, a different teacher, the same each day, but a different teacher each period will be in that room that will be called a support lab, an academic lab, not an inside suspension room, providing the direct instruction to the students that get assigned there on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. So in the morning, I'm going to start off the morning with behavior intervention with Mr. Snow, my social worker, for minimum 20 minutes. Then I'll start my academic content subject areas. So all students in there will know from 9 to 10, they have reading. 10 to 11, they have social studies. 11 to 12, they have math. 12 to 1, they have science. So that they never get behind in their instruction, and they receive behavior intervention every single morning before they start the day, all with your existing resources, no additional cost to the district.
So what were these students doing now? They were just sitting there doing nothing?
They had work provided to the teacher. Again, very difficult. So, because you're going to find out 8 o'clock in the morning, by the way, Johnny just had a problem on the bus coming in. He's going into inside suspension. I need lessons for him, and I need them from you, and you. All right, so I've got a class starting. What do you,
Right.
you know what I mean? So those lessons that are being provided are not going to match the instruction they would get in the classroom. Now we're trying to match that with that, could be that same certified teacher that's going to be in that room with Johnny that first period. And we have a plan to roll that out at the middle school with the teachers, helping develop that plan. I met with the representative group of them today. Mr. Morrissey is meeting with them in a meeting with the teachers tomorrow to begin developing further that plan. But they're very, very supportive of that plan. And by the way, a plan we currently have implemented at the high school, and it's running very successfully. Again, it's that 6 through 12 continuum we're trying to create in terms of like services between the two buildings on the same campus.
Was this sort of like a police officer, or was that?
No, it wasn't. It has that title. That's what I want to kind of get away from. It has that title, but no, it had nothing to do with police, law enforcement. It was more of a monitor position that spent most of the time in the ISS room. So, any questions on the positions? Programming additions. As you may have heard, we have an opportunity to partner with Sprint to roll out the first in the country true one-to-one laptop program to every student that bridges the digital divide. And when I say bridge the digital divide, and when we talk Connect Ed, we're talking about providing students who today do not have the same access to technology that you and I do. They don't go home and have a computer. They don't go home and have internet. Many school districts are doing a one-to-one laptop program. They're sending students home with a laptop without internet connection. They don't have the same advantages. They're not on the same playing field as those students that are going home with that same laptop and have access to their home internet connection.
So this is buying laptops for students?
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
So if you could think of the cost of buying every single student in a district a laptop at $468 a laptop, it's enormous, millions of dollars, and then give them internet on top of it in all their homes, millions of dollars. The partnership that we have with Sprint and with our E-rate provider. E-rate is the federal program that reimburses us as a school district, because we exist as a school district, for our utilities, our data, our telephones, at a rate depending upon the number of free and reduced lunch children in your district. And this is where we truly bridge the digital divide. This is where it gets neat. A conversation I had a couple weeks ago with a parent was, so we're going to pay $50 for the laptop, be able to lease it for the year. And that $50 is going to go toward providing a laptop and internet service for the students that can't afford it. No. The only reason why you're able to lease that laptop at $50 a year is because of the number of free and reduced lunch children who can't afford it that we have in this district. So the E-rate, because of that number that we have, E-rate tells me we're going to give you 80% return on the cost of your laptop to include your internet connection for all those students, every student in the district. Never mind just the free and reduced lunch, every student. We're also going to come into your high school and we're going to lay full wireless service in all of your buildings, including central office, and give all of those students a laptop. Cost to the district, $5 monthly fee out of that monthly data plan for internet service is non-E-ratable. That's a cost we have to absorb as a district. 80% reimbursement for the cost of that data plan comes to the district. Excuse me, 20% comes to the district, 80% by E-rate. And then you have to figure in the amount of internet that is being used outside of our school walls is also today not E-ratable, though we think that's going to change in the future as more school districts want to get on board with this program. But today we have to budget for it because it doesn't exist as an E-rate reimbursement today. So where that gets us is at a 75% reimbursement, the cost of the district for that would be $202. Because each family now is paying $50 for a laptop too, for 1,000 laptops, so it's $50,000 that we're getting from them year to year to help continue to fund this program. But the initial upfront cost is going to be $202 at a 75% reimbursement. Now we just found out that we're actually eligible for 80% reimbursement. So the 471 that was originally submitted 2 months ago, approved at 75%, has now just been resubmitted for review, and it'll take a couple months for that review. But in talking to the E-rate people, they've informed us both those schools qualified for 80%. So at my request last week, I said, then why give us the district reimbursement rate? Why not give us the reimbursement rate that those two schools qualify for? Because it's only a 6 through 12 program. And they agreed. So they actually on their own resubmitted that review for the 471 to get us to the 80%, but we have to budget for the 75 today. So out of the 202,000, this is symbolic in nature is really what this 100,000 represents. I can budget the full thing out of the Alliance District today. That's not the point. 102 is in the Alliance District funding for next year. The 100,000 is the ownership by this community that we want the best for our students, for our children. We think this program makes sense. We're getting it at a fraction of the cost of most other districts because of the number of free and reduced lunch students we have. We wouldn't be able to afford it. So as a community, we're behind this for our children, is what we're saying. Parents have a cost as well. Every single child getting one, the cost of that parent is $50 a year to lease it for each year.
Can you just explain what happens if it's damaged, broken?
Sure. We have insurance on these,
Yeah.
okay? You have insurance. We give the parent the option in the policy to use their own homeowner's insurance, where they're not paying into our insurance. They'll have that option. They will have a new laptop the same day it's broken. The old laptop goes back to be repaired and or replaced by Sprint. Now, you're leasing it for 3 years. At the end of your 3 years, you're going to get a new laptop. So you're a 6th grader today, 6, 7, 8, you hit the high school, new laptop. Here's $150 for your old laptop, thank you very much. Now you use that $150 to pay your $50 lease for the next 3 years. We're not paying that $150, Sprint is. So every 3 years, that laptop gets upgraded for that child, because we know technology changes rapidly. But it's a new program by Sprint. Derby will be the first in the country to enter into this agreement where the cost is burdened by the E-rate reimbursement program. The next is our digital curriculum. So last year, through the Alliance District funding, we purchased a curriculum, an ELA curriculum program for the elementary schools. We didn't have one. So from first grade to first grade in the same building, the same things weren't going on in the classroom because we didn't have curriculum for the teachers. Never mind from building to building on the other side of town. So any report on going from fair to good in a district, the first thing you have to look at is curriculum, aligning curriculum. So that's what we did with the Journeys program, implemented, provided professional development. It's rolled out at the elementary levels. We have the same issue with curriculum at the middle and the high school. Now the cost of the Journeys program just for ELA alone was $160,000 without the professional development to roll it out. The digital curriculum is far less expensive and can service our students 6 through 12 and comes with 6 days of professional development for our teachers. And the greatest piece of this is the partnership that this curriculum now has with this assessment company, NWEA, is the new MAP assessment that we rolled out, our benchmark assessments that we rolled out 6 through 12. As a district, we had no benchmark assessments 9 through 12. We had Ames Webb, an outdated assessment system, 6 through 8. NWEA MAP assessment is a nationally normed benchmark assessment aligned to our new standards, given to students 3 times a year on the computer. We now get what's called a RIT score, which is a range. So if I have I took the math assessment, I have a RIT range score of 208 to 218. I plug that into this digital curriculum. In addition to the digital curriculum that the teacher will be working from in their classroom, it now provides me with 28 hours of intervention lessons that student who got that 208 to 218 math score needs to work on over the next couple months before they take the NWEA MAP assessment again. So we've provided now individualized by student learning plans on how to move along that continuum without overburdening the teacher to say, okay, here's the RIT score. How are you going to provide intervention to that student and all of your other 120 students? And how are you going to know you're moving them today, tomorrow, the next day, along that continuum of growth before they take that NWEA assessment again? We can't do that today. The best teacher can't do that today for 120 students. It's impossible. Our expectation is they can. We tell them they have to. But they can't. This program gives us a shot at providing that individualized learning to students between these two together. Now, in addition to this, we're looking for partnerships with Sprint on this, and NWEA, and Edgenuity. To come back to us, if I offer you a 3-year contract for this, come back to us, you two get together, Sprint we're already on the phone with, what can you do to help roll this program out so it's cost effective for this district? But these are the numbers we have today. An assessment coordinator. Well, you can't plug this in without having this service. It's not a position. You have to have people in your district to be able to coordinate the testing. We have to do the testing by law. We have to have people to help coordinate it. So instead of bringing in a separate assessment coordinator or paying one stipend to one person for the entire district, which was the practice, we have an assessment coordinator for each building. Because we not only have the NWEA assessments, we now have the SBAC assessment, which is that once a year, national assessment that 24 states in the country now use. The other 24 use the park assessment. A couple opted out. This person will coordinate that testing for us. It's a stipend on top of their salary. It's a $1,500 stipend to each of those 4 people. An assistant superintendent. We used Alliance District funding as we did for all of these this past year to support bringing on board an assistant superintendent. We have 3 more years left of that Alliance District fund. If we don't begin planning today how to keep those things that work, that we have measured, and that we know are working with our students, and slowly start building them into our budget, we're going to fall off a cliff in 3 years. People in this room know towns that has happened to. Research on how to use grants will tell you, don't go out and buy and hire a bunch of people that you can't support in 3 or 5 years. Because even if you can't support them and you lay them off, guess what? You're paying unemployment. So we're trying to build in some of the costs that were previously in the Alliance District funding. So remember this year, $669,000. This totaling about $76,000. Part of it is the assistant superintendent. That's only a part of the salary that we're moving over. The other part of the salary will be picked up by Title I funding, federal funding. So we're not asking the district to take the full burden at this time. We have Title I funding that'll take the other portion of it. A family liaison, 2nd year at Irving School, and maybe it's the person in the position, but it's a tremendous asset to that building, that school, the teachers, the administration, most importantly, the children and the parents at Irving. That was previously in Alliance as well. And we're adding, not previously in Alliance out of this list, but we're adding $8,000 to our music program district-wide to try and start building up the music and arts in the district. So of this, that we're moving over from Alliance, about $176,000 total, we're not asking you to give us extra money for it. We're just asking that because as a district we have an E-rate that gives you a return of 75% on the dollar of our utility, our voice and data lines, we're just asking for those dollars back. Dollars the city would not be eligible for if we didn't exist as a district. So we have about $228,000 in your budget in front of you for the utilities and telephones and data lines. Times the 75% reimbursement rate, the city gets a check from E-rate. We're just asking for those dollars back into our budget. The overall increase, 1.9%. Questions?